Mic check, checking. If y'all hear me, put a one in the chat. Trying to make sure everybody hear me. Mic check. We're gonna start in a few seconds, just getting everything together. But if y'all hear me, make sure you put a one in the chat. Make sure I'm coming through nice and clear. Y'all while check real quick on your phone if you can. You know what I'm saying? Like and share. We're just trying to make sure all the audio is right. It should be, but you know, our oppressor out there, just making sure, got to double check. Double check and make sure everything is good. If you hear me, put a one on the screen. You know what I'm saying? If you hear me, put a one. Are we good?
Good.
No slack. We're going to start there. All right, we the ISUPK starting at a 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. We've been doing this since 1969 and letting so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians know that you are the lost sheep of the House of Israel. And today on the Long Island class, we're going to go over Black grief. Black and white grief. You understand? And
Right.
That's important for Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians to understand what grief is. We're going to get into it for a few seconds, but we've gone around all our lives with all this grief on our back. You understand? And we all deal with it differently compared to our oppressor and how we deal with it. You understand? And it all boils down to they get relaxations from their grief. With Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we gotta just hold it in.
Right.
We gotta just hold it in. Everybody else gets judgment for their griefs and sorrows and accidents or terrorist actions, but us, forget about it. Don't worry about it.
They get justice.
Right. They get justice. But us, it never even happened. You understand? That was a long time ago. 9/11 happened, damn near 20 years ago?
Right.
I mean, almost like 20-something years ago. We remember it every year. September 11, what they do? They make sure they throw those lights up.
Say never forget.
Never forget. But Atlantic slave trade, you got to forget it. It's a long time ago. Black Wall Street, you still talking about that? What's wrong? Black Renaissance, man? Come on, man.
Pooey.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? You losing your job. You get another one. Why you? You understand? Your mother dying. You know what I'm saying? You call out for work. What happened? You barely get a week.
Right.
Barely even get a day. You know what I'm saying? Your kids is missing. Your child, your daughter, your son. Don't even get an Amber Alert. Let alone the police officers think, he probably just ran away or probably at his friend's house. But let a white girl go missing. Goddamn, the president comes on making a national security.
Right.
We got to look out for Jane such and such. Put her face right in the front of the screen. You see it all. And then it is a manhunt for her. Somebody's out to go get her, to go look for her.
Right.
But Tyrone, you know what I'm saying? Jermaine, he's just another statistic in their eyes already. They get there already not wanting to make the police report.
And then you got to think about, because we don't get to handle our grief, you express it in many different ways, volatile ways.
Right. Listen, absolutely, man. And that's what's important. What's important, Salaki. What's important is Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. We need to learn how to conquer our grief.
Right.
And the only way we're going to learn to conquer our grief is the magic word, brother and sisterhood. Because ain't nobody else going to help us with grief. Nobody else is going to care, but we care. We got to care for each other to the point it doesn't even matter what anybody else does because we take care of each other.
Right.
But before we go, don't go in the article yet, right? Before we go, I want everybody to understand what grief is. So if you could just Google the word grief and read it off what it is.
Grief. Deep sorrow.
Right.
Especially that caused by someone's death. She was overcome with grief.
Right.
Informal version is trouble or an annoyance.
Right. Listen, and that's the thing. Deep sorrow. You know what I'm saying? And it's letting you know somebody who killed unalive somebody. Somebody that destroyer, someone that's destructive to another type of people. You understand? That's what the grief is. And guess what? We've been through all of that.
Right.
We've been through sorrow. We've been through people who's been destroying all our culture, our neighborhoods, and all types of things. Don't worry about that, man. That's history. That's ancient history. But let something happen to our oppressor, and a bomb goes off, destroying like a historic monument. He's going to war.
Listen, they're gonna go through those 5 stages,
Right?
the normal 5 stages.
Right. He's gonna go through all this stuff. But if I could, right? Let me get this one scripture before we start into the articles. Let me get Psalms 35 and 19. Psalms chapter 35, verse 19.
Psalms chapter 35, verse 19. Let not them that are mine enemies wrongfully rejoice over me.
It says what?
Let not them that are my enemies wrongfully rejoice over me.
Yeah, listen, don't let your enemies rejoice over you, man. And that's what they want to do. So, like, one second. Let me just. I like to see the scriptures sometimes. Bear with me. Sorry.
Psalms 35 and 19.
All right.
Let not them that are my enemies wrongfully rejoice over me.
Right. Let not them that are my enemies wrongfully rejoice over me. Keep going.
Neither let them wink the eye that hate me without a cause.
Right. Keep going.
For they speak not peace.
They do what?
They speak not peace.
They don't want peace, man. They speak not peace. They speak everything against us to make sure, guess what? We keep our grief. We keep our sorrow. They don't want us to be relieved of all our stress. And so, listen, somebody dies. It's like I said before. Someone very important of your family dies. Your great grandma. Listen, if your grandma lives to a great age of 90 something, 100 something, and she passed away in her sleep, that's a great thing.
A blessing.
It's a blessing. Not only that, your grandma got to see 90 something, 100 years of life. Even though it might have been hell, but she got to see all life and tell you all types of wisdom. You should be honored to put your grandma to rest. Sorrow for a little bit. We all crying. We all talk about what grandma did. It could have been some food. It could have been some cake. It could have been what she did for the family. She did this and that. You should be given a certain amount of time to have grief, have sorrow. But your oppressor, he don't want you to have that. He wants you to, I'm sorry your mom died. I'm sorry your grandma died, man. I'm just very sad. When can you come in?
Are you coming in Tuesday?
Right? Are you coming in Tuesday? And today is Monday. You know what I'm saying? The most they'll give you, if it happened on Friday, they'll give you the weekend. You know what I'm saying? But listen, you got to come back to work. We need you. You're the only one who know how to do something. You got all this sorrow, all this sadness, all this anger in you because you want to put your grandma to rest. You want to put your mother to rest, your brother, your sister to rest. You can't even do that. You have to worry about getting to work. Why? Because you might be fired.
Right.
You might have to go through other things. You might have to do other things that's on your mind and disturbing you while your oppressor is telling you to come back to work. You're in full of grief, full of sorrow. You have no one to release this burden on you. But our oppressor does. Oppressor has the United States of America. God bless us all. He has all that behind him that supports him in his grief and his sorrows. Someone does something to his family. What he does? He has law. He has the lawyers. Someone does something to his country. He has the U.S. Army. He has the government. He has the president of the United States of America.
Right.
But if somebody does something to black people, what they got? They got nothing. They have nobody. They have church. You have Al Sharpton, you know what I'm saying? You have all these other things that's supposed to relieve you of a grief, but what happens? They give you more burden, more grievance, more stuff for you to worry about where you just don't know what to do no more. Now you on drugs.
Right. Coping.
Right. Now you coping. Now you on drugs. Now you on fentanyl. Now you on whatever it is to forget all your sorrows, all your griefs. But the scripture says what? Read it again.
For they speak not peace.
Right.
But they devise deceitful matters.
They do what?
Devise deceitful matters.
That's what they do. They devise deceitful matters. They divide deceitful matters to keep you in this grief and sorrow. They want to make sure that you're coked up, that you're weeded up. Listen, that's why they made weed legal. That's why they made it legal. How the hell can we keep these people to keep doing work, and any problems they have them forget about it, have them relaxed?
Right.
It's marijuana, man. It's history. I wish I could show you right now, but history shows that the slaves were smoking marijuana in certain of these tropical islands in the Bahamas. Why? Because it helps them cope with getting the work done. You have to cope somehow.
Right.
And guess what? Marijuana was the main key then, and it's the main key now. But the difference is it's laced with fentanyl. You doing it with lean. You smoking, you drinking, you doing prostitution, you doing whatever it takes to make sure. Listen. Whatever. I'm not gonna think about getting fired today, or my mom this or this and that. I'm on child support. My wife hates me. This, she left me, or he left me. I'm a whore or whatever.
They roll up.
Right. They roll up to forget all the sorrows and the grief. But read it again. It says what?
For they speak not peace, but they devise deceitful matters.
Divide deceitful matters. Keep going.
Against them that are quiet in the land.
Keep going.
Yea, they opened their mouth wide against me.
Right.
And said, I have seen it.
Right. And this is them. They do all that. Aha, or I have seen it. I've seen what it takes for you to keep you in grief, man. I see what it is to make sure the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, they never come together. They never show brotherhood and sister love. Why? Because you're too busy high. You're too busy trying to cope with the grief we have, the sorrow. You understand? But keep going. Let's go into that first article. Read what you got with the first article.
It's understanding black grief.
Right. You don't have to put it on the screen. You just
okay. Understanding black grief.
Right.
To understand the unique experience of black loss, grief, and bereavement, it's necessary to consider the collective grief Black Americans have suffered as a result of America's long history of racialization and racist violence.
Right.
All right, it says the average lifespan for Black Americans is 78 years old.
Right there is letting you know half of us is in midlife.
Right.
We're midlife already. It says the average lifespan for Black Americans is 78 years old. And that's being nice. That's being generous. Keep going.
6 years shorter than it is for white Americans. Compared with white Americans, Black Americans are twice as likely to die of heart disease.
Right.
50% more likely to have high blood pressure and are likelier to die at early ages of all causes.
Right.
Health disparities in the Black community are well documented, but what's less understood is the emotional toll those dire statistics have on Black Americans,
right,
who may be losing loved ones more frequently at younger ages. You know, with Black Americans leading shorter and sicker lives, it is likely they are also experiencing grief more often. Experiencing grief more often.
Right. So right here is letting you know we have health conditions and dying early and sicker and this and that. And so it's saying right here, health disparities in the Black community are well documented, but what's less understood is the emotional toll those dire statistics have on Black Americans, who may be losing loved ones more frequently and at younger ages. So listen, at younger ages and more frequently, we losing young ones. We're in more grief than we are than ever before. You know why? Because listen, you still gotta work. You still if you're a single mother or a single father, you gotta take care of the kids. You don't have a grandmother or a great grandfather to watch them. You got to pay for daycare. You have someone to pick them up from school.
Right.
Your mother just died. Your father just died. You lost your job. Listen, we are in sorrow. Right here is like, you know, we in more sorrow than we've ever been. And guess what? There's no one to relieve that. No one. How can we cope with it? And this, you know, and right here in this class, we're going to find out there's a big difference between Black sorrow and white sorrow.
Right.
Because on the other hand, white people go through the same thing. Our oppressor goes through the same thing. Not to say they don't die, they don't lose loved ones, they don't lose their jobs. You know what I'm saying? They single mothers and fathers. Not saying that, but the difference is they have people to help them.
Right.
They have people to give them hope and dreams of you're not going to always be like that. You have people to look up to. Look at George Washington. Look at this and this. You can be president. That's what they tell their people. They tell their people, listen, you can shoot for the goddamn stars. Go to Mars. You can do it. Look what such and your ancestors did. They had Greek. They had Rome. You conquered great nations. You start telling that to somebody who's down in a white community. You know what happened? You start looking up. You say, you know what? You're right. My mother would want it best for me.
Right.
My father would want it best for me. My children look up to me. As Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we look at sorrow way different.
Right.
We more worried about, we can't even get to the part of looking to the goddamn stars. We're still trying to get out of the 6 feet of the ground.
Right.
With your children on your back and your whole family is climbing little by little by little. That's why when you graduate high school and go to college, my God.
Always the first in the family.
First in the family, you went to college. Listen, you are president of the family.
Right.
You represent the Johnsons. You know what I'm saying? The Moores or whatever your last name could be. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You represent us. Do good. Go out there and do good. And then just little by little, that little sorrows that we have, the insecurity just is lifted up a little bit because my son made it, or my daughter made it, or my grandchild, my grandbaby made it. But our oppressors, they don't know anything about what we go through.
Not at all.
But keep going.
It says a historical context for collective grief.
Right.
In their paper, Wilson and O'Connor write that to better understand Black grief, the historical perspective is necessary. One that takes into account the racialization of Black people in America, which have been marked by enslavement, structural inequality, historical and ongoing racial violence.
Right.
And staggering amounts of loss, including loss of loved ones and community members, loss of land, loss of sense of safety. All of that contributes to a much more complex picture of grief than is found in existing literature.
Yeah, listen, and that's important. Read it again where it says of Black people in America which been marked by enslavement. Read after that.
It was marked by enslavement,
right?
Structural inequality,
right?
Historical and ongoing racial violence.
Listen, just read this. Just think about this is the stuff we go through day by day. Our oppressor can't fathom what this is, man. They don't know what racism truly is. They don't know how racism is to the point your parents, just think about it, your parents had to name you somewhat white names.
Right.
Just think about it. If we so-called African, why didn't they give us African names? You know what I'm saying? Remember, I'm talking about, especially if you're born in the 80s and 90s, this is the fight the power movement. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Fight the power. We learned our culture, right? In the 80s and 90s. Why are we still naming some of our kids white names?
They knew that you can't fight the power without money.
Right.
And you ain't gonna get that job.
Right, absolutely. We still listen, the sorrow that we have is deep. And right here it shows you. Keep going. What else it says?
Ongoing racial violence.
Right.
And staggering amounts of loss.
Staggering amounts of loss. Listen, we lose loved ones daily, man. We lose them daily. And we's trying to cope with it. Like, listen, I understand the brother might have done wrong and all that. And then, we make fun of the mother. Oh, I bet you she gonna say that he was a good boy and this and that. Yes. Yeah, yes.
That's his mama.
Right, exactly. That's his mother. That's his father. That's her mother. That's her father. It's gonna happen. You know why? Because she's dealing with grief.
Right.
You out just we only looking at the bad that the brother did or sister did. I understand. He shouldn't have done that. But now no one's looking towards the mother that's dealing with the son that's just lost or the daughter that just lost. She lost. The grief that she has over her because every parent wants their child to live longer than them.
Right.
You want to see your child make it, at least do better than you. And then, once my son is good, I can finally die in peace. Nobody wants to see their child that they raise from a young age to a great young man or woman die before them.
Right.
No one wants to see that. Go ahead.
And also, you know, if your son, your daughter's on the wrong path, you want to see them make it to be able to turn it around.
Right. Like some of us, like most of us.
Like Hunter Biden.
Yeah. Ain't nobody want to talk about him, right?
Right.
How he's a coke addict, drug addict, you know what I'm saying? A bum. But now, listen, he a president. He's the president's son. You know what I'm saying? He got all the functions and money in the world to help him out, but he don't want to. But Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, we fight. We try to fight to get help.
Right.
Can't get none. You make too much. You make too much. You don't qualify. You overqualify.
Overqualified.
Right. You overqualify. Are you married? If you have a husband in the house, we can't help you. You just about a little bit made it over. You make a little bit over $60 over what we can help you with. And they won't give you help. That's our oppressor. That's what he does. So of course, all this, we're going to be in sorrow. We're going to be in grief. And that is why it's important to understand our grief and what we go through and how our oppressor goes through it, man.
Right.
But keep going. Read on.
It says, including loss of loved ones and community members.
And what?
Community members.
Listen, your community members, man. That's also part of it. Your community members. That person, that brother, that Puerto Rican that you saw at the bodega, love the bodega. Love the pizza you made. Love all the going there as a child, this and that. What ends up happening? Not there no more. Or violence had happened. He's dead now. He's gone. The community sorrow. Sad. Like, damn, I miss him, man. He used to do us justice. He used to do us good. And who comes into your neighborhood? Maybe Palestinian,
right?
Pakistani, a Chinese man. And what happened? He raised the prices. Or he doesn't sell you the stuff that's targeted towards our community.
You short a quarter?
Right, you short a quarter. Chinese man wants his every cent. He wants every penny. Don't short him a penny or a dime. He wants you to go get it. But Poppy from the corner store, he'll pay me tomorrow. Pay me when you can. You understand? Even if it's in wickedness. All right, here's a Lucy. Here's a cigarette. You know what I'm saying? Knowing it's illegal. It's illegal to even do that. But so-called, even in the wickedness that we have, it's all right, don't worry about it. Just pay me when you can. Or don't tell no one. It's some sort of brotherhood, sisterhood.
That collective experience.
Right. But the thing about it is, remember, as a community, if we're together and you lose someone in the community, it hurts everybody.
Right.
It hurts everybody so much. It can lose a job. Those are jobs gone. Just not that the brother's not there. A job is gone no more. There's no more. Whatever he was doing affects the community. If that was the community car wash, guess what? The community don't got a car wash no more.
Right. Especially
if he don't have an heir to the throne. If you don't have a son or a daughter who want, and not only have them, if they want to take it over, because they might not want to do whatever the pops is doing. They might want to do their own thing.
Right.
So what? The community suffers from multiple things. But keep going. What else?
This is loss of land.
Loss of what?
Loss of land.
Listen, I can't even tell you enough how much land we've lost.
Right.
How much lands, how much cities. Central goddamn Park. You know what I'm saying? There's a Black Wall Street. There's so much.
Lincoln Center.
Listen, yeah.
Hudson Yards.
And whatever Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian community that you're in now, it's going to be next. Right. It could be next. Harlem look like goddamn a milkshake, man. Look like a chocolate milkshake. You understand? Just add milk to it.
Just getting brighter and brighter.
Brighter and brighter. Where's the chocolate at? You understand? But the point is, we lost land. So, of course, you're going to have sorrow from land because what happened? Let's say your grandma was supposed to be the heir to that land. She was passing it down generation to generation. What happens? A corporation or some Edomite or some oppressor comes in like, she ain't pay her taxes in years.
And that's your wealth.
Right.
That's your family wealth.
Right. All the stuff you remember on your father's land, on your mother's land, your grandma's land, a whole bunch of us from the South, it's not there no more. It's gone. Just think about all the stuff that's supposed to be handed down to us. Can't do it. Can't. Or just even, I'll even relate it to today. Let's say, I even went through this. Let's say you have your grandma's house, or grandfather's house, and nobody wants the house.
Mm-hmm.
The house is supposed to be there. Your grandfather built the house for everybody for the future. If something happens, you can always come back.
Right.
You could come back. Your sons could come back. Your sons could come back. Well, I actually was to keep that upkeep of the house. No one wants the house. Why? Because everyone has their own house.
Mm-hmm.
Why we gotta go back to Papa's house, Grandma's house, Mama's house? Why we gotta go back to their house? And what ends up happening? They sell it. They sell the house that's supposed to keep the family together,
Right.
in essence. And what ever happen? They sell it. Everybody fight over the money, and little do they know, years later they're in some turmoil. Somebody is gonna have some type of sorrow and grief. And be like, yo, can I stay at your house, man? I don't got no room over here.
Mm-hmm.
What about Alex? I said, Alex don't even live in New York no more.
Mm-hmm.
And then you know what ends up happening? You start regretting the house that you sold from your the family,
Right.
your grandma's house,
Right.
your granddad's house. You realize, like, I finally understand why we were supposed to keep the land. We were supposed to keep the house. And guess what? Now you in sorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know where to live. You had a rent-free place to live. All you had to do was upkeep it, pay the taxes time to time, and that's that.
That's it.
But as I said, we lose what?
Loss of land
Keep going.
and loss of sense of safety.
Sense of what?
Sense of safety.
Listen, man, we lost the sense of safety. Listen, I shouldn't even have to go over this.
Right.
The sense of safety. We can't even go to school without our children going through metal detectors. Can't even go to school without getting stop and frisks. You going to work and stopping at the gas station? Why are you stopping over here? I'm just getting gas.
Let me
It
see
don't look like you getting gas.
Let me see your ID.
Right. It look like you know drug dealers is around this corner, right?
Mm.
You know they sell weed and marijuana around here, or heroin or fentanyl, right? You just like, yo, listen, I'm just trying to just get gas. You can see I have my uniform on at work. I don't believe you. Let me see ID and registration. We go through that daily. Go through that daily. Go into the store. God forbid you send your kids to the store. It might not come back.
Right.
It might not come back. Why? Because it says what?
Lost all sense of safety.
We lost all sense of safety, man. Keep going.
All of that contributes to a much more complex picture of grief than is found in existing literature.
Mm-hmm.
In colonial times, enslaved Black Americans were routinely, often violently, separated from their spouses.
And listen, we gotta remember. Think about that. Think about that. Like we said in past classes. Remember, trauma is passed down to us. Don't think it's not. The trauma that your great great grandfather and your great great grandmother or your cousins and this it's passed down.
Down to the DNA.
Down to the DNA. That trauma, that grief have to go somewhere, and it's in you. That's why she's relating to the colonial times when we was enslaved. What happened? Go ahead.
Often violently separated from their spouses, children, and
Right.
families,
Right.
while also made to witness violent acts inflicted on other enslaved Black people. In the Jim Crow era, Black people were regularly beaten or hanged publicly.
Right.
While it may be tempting to consider these as dark, long ago chapters in history, it's critical to recognize the lingering effects of past trauma. As these past experiences help explain why collective grief remains so prevalent in the Black community today. It says when the enslaved were torn from their families, they often formed familial bonds.
They did what?
They often form familial bonds.
Listen, this is important. Listen up. Read or go up 2 more verses before and read it again. It's Wilson said.
As these past experiences help explain why collective grief remains so prevalent in the Black community today.
Keep going.
When the enslaved were torn from their families,
Right.
they often formed familial bonds.
They form familiar bonds. Just think about it. You lost your mother, you lost your father, your kids, your 3 brothers and sisters are gone. Keep going.
or fictive kinships
Mm-hmm.
with one another, seeing each other as brothers and sisters
Right.
or aunts and uncles, Wilson said. Fictive kinship continues to some degree in the black community today.
Right. Listen, and if you don't know what finting kinships is when you walking down the street and you see that brother every day,
Mhm.
and I'm saying it already, when you see that black brother every day from the same neighborhood, you walk to the bus stop, both of y'all meet there 9 o'clock every day. Say, what's going on, brother? How you doing? That's kinship right there.
You calling them brother.
Right. It's right here. That's what it means. The fictive kinship. That's what it is. People you don't see, there's people you see all the time, or you might not see them all the time. But the fact that, hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing? Hey, sis, what's up? What's up? That's fictive kinship. So it's saying even with that, we was losing each other.
Right.
Just imagine that. Even someone that wasn't really your blood brother, but you worked together. Just think about it. It happens in the slave. It's like, damn, they got such and such, man. He's gone. Or he got fired, or he found a better job. I'm happy for him, or I'm sad, man. He gone. Now what happened? That brotherhood, sisterhood, it's gone. It's not there no more. And the thing about it, grief comes over you even with that.
Right.
Just think about it. Even at work, it's like, damn, who's gonna help me with this now? Me and him used to rock it around and make sure we bust this out, make this happen, and make this work. Now he going. Now you gotta work with some new person that might not even understand you. He might be there to let you go.
Right.
Make sure that you ain't working to the standards now, because you've been there for a long time. You working by the old standards. He's with the new program. Maybe they there to push you out, to give you more grief.
More work.
Right. We keep going.
It says Black American communal family ties are much looser in the sense that we're more apt to call Black strangers sister,
right,
or brother,
right,
or auntie. And this stems from times during enslavement where people were removed from their family of origin. So they might have been adopted by the people they ended up.
Right. And that's what's so important, because we was getting adopted and looked at those people as family.
Accepted them.
And that right there, brothers and sisters, brotherhood and sisterhood.
Right.
We still have, I'm not saying we don't have this in the community, but we need more of this.
Right.
We need a lot more of this. Because if we did, listen, we'd be more inviting. You see a brother on the street, down on his luck, give him a coat. Give him a jacket. Give him some food, especially if you see him on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
You know why? Because then the next person will look into the next one. Then the next one, then the next one, and this. And then we can start building a bond in a community like we're supposed to do. Like it's destined for us to. But if we keep thinking like our oppressor, well, that has nothing to do with me. And that's how they work. They work, well, listen, they will see their fellow brother and sister and just like, listen, he got to work harder. Listen, it's sad that he's in that position, but he got to get a better job. He got to do something. Who did this to him?
So that's rough.
Pull his boot. Listen, what happened to his bootstraps? He need to pull himself up. You understand? He started thinking like, listen, he almost like a black person to him. That's how our oppressor think. He's so Hunger Games style, battle royal, every man for himself. A dog eat dog world, like he likes to say. That's how he thinks. We don't think like that, man. We're not supposed to think like that. We're supposed to think if one falls, we all fall.
Right.
If one dies, we all look at them as, damn, listen, such and such died. We all got to mourn. We all have to have sorrow for this brother. We can't just look at him because I don't know him. I don't know who he is. He's just another brother like everybody else.
It's so ingrained. You still calling him brother.
Right.
It's so ingrained.
Yeah, I know. And that shows you how the grief and all the stuff in our history ingrained into us now. You understand? But keep going.
It says that's morphed over time to becoming a broader practice in the Black community.
Right.
That sense of kinship is part of why deaths like George Floyd's are felt so deeply. This aptness to look at each other as kin is part of why collective loss is a particular thing in the Black community.
Right.
With George Floyd, you almost feel for him as if he's family and feel that loss very deeply because your own ethno-racial identity.
Right.
There's also this piece of linked fate and the idea that what if what happened to George Floyd could happen to me?
Right. And that's how we always think. We always should think like that. Like, what if that happened to him, it's damn sure could happen to me. I got kids like that. I got an uncle, I got a father that goes out and do the same thing that he does. So I gotta be careful. Like, we gotta be careful, man. And this is the stem and this is the root to us saying brothers and sisters, man.
Right. We listen, we all, everyone who saw that knew it could have easily have been them.
Right. Absolutely, man. But keep going.
Let's see. It says in the same year that Floyd was murdered, Black Americans also suffering disproportionate losses to COVID-19.
Right.
Grief has not been equally distributed during the pandemic. Black Americans are almost twice as likely to lose someone to COVID.
Right.
It says we were starting to narrow the Black-white life expectancy gap, and it seems that COVID has erased all of that progress. And let's see, is O'Connor, associate professor of psychology and author of the book The Grieving Brain: The Surprising Science of How We Learn from Love and Loss.
Right.
So that's who wrote this article. It says O'Connor said grief research often fails to consider the number of losses a person have experienced and how that might impact one's health.
Right.
We know that Black Americans are experiencing more deaths of close relatives, and we know that losing 3 or more loved ones shows up in the thickening of arteries. So why aren't we asking how many loved ones have you lost? She said. That's a piece of data that's just completely missed in the research.
Just think about that, man. They damn near telling you losing more, 3 or more relatives, you're gonna get a heart attack.
Crazy.
You're gonna get a heart. It's not just the fast food no more. It's not you munching on a McDonald's or Burger King or eating something and not working out. You lose three loved ones. Forget about it, man. You're most likely gonna die of a heart attack.
Right.
A broken heart. You understand?
I read that stress raises your cortisol levels.
Right.
And obviously losing a loved one is immense stress. So they saying 3 or more loved ones. Listen, you starting to. It's like eating an unhealthy diet.
Right,
like you
right.
gotta. You literally taking in grief.
Right.
Like almost physically.
Right. So just think about. Oh man, y'all holla, man. Too anxious to get more articles, Xing us out of the damn class. But listen, this just shows you Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Listen, we lose loved ones. They're not going to tell you that Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians is going to die from a heart attack. You're going to suffer from these atrocities because why? You lost your son, you lost your mother, you lost your brother. You lose everyone in your family, and you the only one alive. God forbid you the only one alive in your family. You're gonna die of a heart attack.
Yeah.
If
Stroke.
not, you're gonna stroke something. You're gonna die from something, and it ain't gonna be natural.
Right.
It's not gonna be natural, and this is the stuff what our oppressor doesn't go through.
Yeah, and it's compounding.
Right.
People don't think about that because it shortens your life. You die early, so then your family is have another person dying at an early age,
right,
which shortens their life,
right.
And it's pretty incredible.
Listen, absolutely. Well, let's see what other article we go in. Let's go into it because we still gotta get into how white grief goes down.
Let's see.
Yeah, right there.
All right, this is 5 stages of Black grief.
Yeah, show them the article. Go ahead, go up a little bit so they can see what the article is. If they see it or not, I don't know if they see it.
They see it small.
Oh, okay, yeah, but still, yeah, show them. Let's see what it is.
So
What
this
it says.
article is it says, how do we address black grief
Right.
compounded by centuries of racism, loss, and trauma?
Let's get to it. Go ahead.
Now we're gonna go all the way down to understanding black grief,
Right.
and then go to the 5 stages of black grief because it's different.
Absolutely.
So understanding black grief. It says, despite the disproportionate impact of grief on the black communities, there's very little research on black grief specifically. In reviewing thousands of published papers, Scott only found 31 that had focused on African American grief. The particularity of the research likely stems from the assumption that African American grief does not differ from the general population,
Right.
or some white researchers' disinclination to study black grief because it starkly illuminates the ongoing impact of white oppression.
Right. And that's right there. In layman's terms, is they don't want to discuss about black grief because it always comes back to white supremacy. It always comes back to slavery. It always comes back to black people being oppressed by who? Your oppressor. Your oppressor that the Bible speaks of, man, that deceiver. It always comes back to him. Why? Because think about it. We ain't never really truly left slavery. We ain't never really left to have something that's ours. And if we did, guess what? He destroyed it.
Right.
He blew it up. He put it in the goddamn ocean, a lake. There's some places where they saying, listen, there's a damn economy under there. There's a land, and if you really look, there's buildings, but they don't really want to talk about that.
Lake Lanier.
Right. They don't really want to talk about that. Listen, this whole America, this whole land is covered with oppression, man, and sorrow. And the sorrow that we can never get rid of or hide. Why? Because everywhere you go is going to remind you of a black man, Hispanic man, Native Indian feeling some type of way.
Right.
You understand? You go to the South, something's there that's going to remind you of slavery. Something is still up. That's from slavery. It might not be a icon for slave no more. They might have remixed it. Like, listen, this is a hotel now.
It might even be a tree.
Right. It might be a tree.
Or a courthouse.
Right. It might be a damn backyard.
Right.
That's a graveyard. You understand? It's something everywhere that's going to remind you of black sorrows, man. Always do. Just look at Wall Street. They still got that goddamn, stump right there.
Right.
They ain't get rid of that. They're letting you know you can still come back here. That's what they letting you know. You see this stump we used to sell you as stock? One day you might be stock again. Don't forget it. So we're going to leave this stump right here for you. So when
it's letting you know they established the financial business,
right,
the financial industry,
right,
off your enslavement,
right, and like we read, off losing family members, loved ones, brothers, fictive kins. You know what I'm saying? Your co-worker, your brother or sister that you see every day, you lost them too,
right?
But keep going.
It says the research that Scott made one thing very clear. While there are commonalities between black and white grief, black grief is different.
Right.
First, black grief is compounded by historical trauma and ongoing loss and inequities.
Right.
Research shows that centuries of loss and discrimination, beginning when Africans were forcefully taken to the Americas and enslaved, can make it even more difficult for African Americans to cope with today's loss and trauma.
Right.
Grief is also compounded by stressful life events such as economic challenges,
like I said, we get jobs,
substance misuse.
The alcohol, the weed. Listen, it could even be cough medicine.
Right.
It could be aspirin. It could be anything that gets you off from feeling the bad way that you don't want to feel.
Right.
Keep going.
And incarceration of family members.
What?
Incarceration of family members.
Listen, your husband went to jail. You got to do it all by yourself. What the hell am I going to do? I got to work tomorrow. I don't got no one to watch them. You start realizing, listen, daycare is expensive, man. Let me tell you, daycare is expensive, man. If you don't listen, if you're a single parent out there, Lord be with you. Because
Right.
I don't know how the hell with the minimum wage, what it is, you know what I'm saying? Not being paid, right? Living check to check. I don't know how the hell you ain't doing it without a grandma.
The math ain't mathing.
Right. The math is damn sure ain't mathing. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how the hell we doing it, but we are doing it.
Right.
We're dealing with grief and sorrow at a tremendous level. But keep going.
Says all of which are common in the Black community because of structural inequities. And since Black families experience death more often than any other racial group,
Right.
and new death can trigger painful memories and further compound loss and grief.
Right.
I want to go down to the 5 stages.
Yeah, let's get it. Let's
So
get
the
what
5
our
stages
stages of grief
Black
is.
grief. This is a theory developed by psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, suggests that we go through 5 distinct stages of grief after the loss of a loved one: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. While helpful points of reference, these stages do not fully account for the unique factors impacting Black grief, says Scott. Instead, she suggests looking at 5 stages unique to Black grief: despair, self-blame, move to action, endurance, and survival.
And listen, and what's so heavy about this right here is that they have to use Black people because white people don't understand what grief truly is.
Right.
Because they showed you what love one. Wait, hold on. Go back up. Look, right there in the paragraph, it says the denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. That's to the point. Black people, we gotta make a whole nother thing for y'all.
Right.
Because y'all don't even follow the regular stages of grief. That's just show. Listen, we're great people.
Right.
We're extraordinary people. We're God's chosen people. Only God's chosen people can be put through so much torture, so much sorrow, so much depression, and still end up doing great things. We supposed to be the bottom of the bottom, super predators, this and that, killers, drug dealers, whores, prostitutes, yada, 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 yada. But when the world sees us do one thing, they want to eat it up.
Right.
We do this, guess what? We sell millions.
Right.
And then everyone copies it. We do this, my God, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Now is a new thing on the market for you to buy. We're the greatest people on the face of the earth, man. I don't care what anybody say. Because right here is showing we went through even worse stages than the regular grief.
Right.
They have to name it Black grief.
It's funny. They say, the third stage is bargaining for them.
Right.
Black people can't bargain.
I can't bargain nothing.
We
Right.
don't have nothing to bargain.
Listen, I got a pack of oodles and noodles. What is it? Like chicken, and I got Oriental.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, I don't got nothing to give you.
We don't have time to go through denial.
That's to the point. Like, I work for you. You got something I do a job for you, and that's the problem. But go ahead, let's read what it is.
It says understanding these phases of grief can help health professionals, community friends, and families provide better support for those experiencing Black grief.
Right.
So the first one is despair. Despair is a form of acceptance whereby a person of color understands that they may always live with the fear of underpinning loss.
Right.
No matter how many precautions they take, there will always be a sense of hopelessness and helpless and keeping themselves and their loved ones safe. In some cases, this sense of despair is exacerbated by the realization that being a Black person could contribute to the loss of life.
Listen, like God, like just one alone just lets you know, like it's hard just being Black.
It's different.
It's different. Just being Black alone, you could just lose your life out there.
Just being Black.
And that's how, just think about what they're doing. Listen, white people can't fathom of just walking out their house and being ridiculed. She's like, where you going? Leave me alone, sir. Mind your business.
Right.
They're going to work. Who you think you're talking to? We don't have the pleasure of that. Every time we walk out of our houses or wherever, it's just like, brother doing this.
Right.
Please, Lord, let me just make it to
Make
work
it back.
at least. Let me please let my kids make it to school. Listen, our kids walk to school by themselves, 5, 4, 6 years old. The school could be 4 blocks, and you made sure the whole summer to make sure your kids know the route, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. First day, maybe not the first day, but let's say the second week, third week of school, you be like, listen, you gotta walk to school. Make sure you go straight there. Hold your brother's hand, please. I gotta go to work. I'm gonna watch you from here, but I'm leaving. Or the other way around. Like, listen, like how my mother used to do. My mother used to work midnight. She used to do overnight at a store called Caldors. I don't know if everybody remember Caldors, but Caldors used to have a 24 hours Caldors. It used to be like a Walmart, damn near a Target type of place.
Right.
But I remember vividly as a kid being like 6 years old, and my sister is like 2. And she'd be like, listen, I'm going to work. I need you to stay in your bed. Don't do nothing.
Right.
Just stay here. If you want something to eat, there's the juice box on the table. There's this and that. Do not turn the stove on. Don't answer the door. Don't do nothing. Just stay in your bed. Go to sleep. I'll be back in the morning time. And she'll leave. She had to go to work. There was no one to watch us.
And she has to think about that the
whole
whole
night.
shift.
The whole night. I hope they ain't. Remember, this is time. It's not like now. Remember, this is a time there is no cell phones. There's no internet. This is just the pay phones or the job phones. So my mom really even can't even call because I'm not supposed to even pick up the phone to let people know I'm home alone.
Right.
So me being young, and what am I doing? My mom ain't here. Watching TV till wee hours in the morning. You know what I'm saying? Drinking juice and snacks she left off. My sister in bed, 2 years old. That's the type of grief we go through. That's the type of sorrow problems we go through. Our oppressor could never think that. Our oppressor don't even raise his kids, man. He lets, guess who does it? He lets us does it.
Right.
He let us raise his kids. We're the ones who's been raising his kids. Especially if he's rich. What's going to happen? They out there making the money. The nanny does it.
Forget about it.
Your kid's speaking Patois and Jamaican. You know what I'm saying? Your kid's speaking Creole or Spanish. Why? Because the nanny's watching them.
Right. You
trying to make sure you keep up this lifestyle.
She watching his kids while she can't watch her kids.
Right. But keep going. What else we got? There's a lot more.
The second stage is self-blame. Self-blame is often a factor in coming to terms with death. But this blame can be all-consuming for Black people who have spent their lives trying to keep their loved ones safe in a society that privileges the safety of white people.
Right.
For Black people, self-blame may be compounded by the feeling that they failed to protect their loved ones against the violence of systematic racism, when in fact that protection should never have been needed,
right?
And is ultimately impossible to provide.
Right.
The system itself preludes it. Put another way, Black people must carry the guilt that does not belong to them.
Right. It
belongs to the system, structures, and people who uphold white supremacy.
Listen, and that's our oppressor, man. And real quick, let me get this scripture so you can know why. Let me get Lamentations 2:15. Lamentations 2:15.
Lamentations chapter 2, verse 15.
Right.
All that pass by clap their hands at thee. They hiss and wag their head at the daughters of Jerusalem, saying, is this the city that men call the perfection of beauty?
Right.
The joy of the whole earth?
Right. So remember, it says, verse 15, all that pass by clap their hands at thee and hiss and wag their head at the daughters of Jerusalem, saying, is this the city that men call the perfection of beauty? Remember, we were supposed to look at as perfection. Remember, we holy, we're separate. They knew we was God's children, man.
Right.
We knew they knew we had laws, statutes, and commandments. We hold ourselves to a higher statute. But guess what? They looking at us like, listen, is this the people?
Right.
Is this the people that's supposed to be great? Or are they killing themselves? Or are they doing this? Or are they doing that? But keep going.
It says, all thy enemies have opened their mouth against thee.
Right.
They hiss and gnash their teeth. They say, we have swallowed her up.
We have what?
We have swallowed her up.
And that's what they wanted to do. They wanted to swallow us up, man, and they absolutely did it. They absolutely swallowed up so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians up. That's why we're in this hellhole now. That's why we are in deep sorrow and grief.
Right.
Why? Because our oppressor made sure to swallow us up at our most vulnerable times.
Which they caused.
Right. Which they caused. Exactly. And they don't want you to remember.
Right.
And then look at you like you're crazy while they do the research and be like, damn, listen, if 3 people, if they lose a lot of loved ones, they might die of a heart attack. They might die of a heart disease.
Which leads to your self-blame.
Right.
You blaming yourself.
Because you're trying to save your brother.
Right.
You like, damn, I wasn't there. If I was only off that day, if I only had went with him, if I only would have just called him. Now you gotta live with what? The regret, the grief of, damn, I could have stopped this. I could have did this. I could have did that. Our oppressor don't know nothing about that.
When it was them.
Right.
It was in your hand. It was
right.
It was their doing.
Right. Absolutely. But keep going, man. Let's go on.
It says the next stage is move to action.
Right.
It says having the time to grieve and process loss is a privilege that is often not afforded to Black people. Circumstances around the death, how the person dies, social economic status, family relations brings its own set of challenges that can complicate the funeral process.
Right.
Rest becomes a luxury and action.
But no, you gotta read that again. It says what?
Rest becomes a luxury.
And that's what they don't. Our oppressor can't understand that. Not having rest.
Not at all.
They love rest. They love it. They love it so much. You work day shift. Your taskmaster is at home on the weekend. You gotta make sure you're available Monday through Sunday. When you get hired, you can work weekends. Like, yeah, I can work weekends. Monday through Monday, you work it 9 to 5.
Right.
I'll see when you can get off. Me, I'm taking a long vacation. But read it again. It says what?
Rest becomes a luxury.
Right.
And action is forced as one person must take charge and navigate unforeseen barriers. And this is not at all one of their stages of grief.
Right. Listen, man, that's our oppressor. But let's keep going. We got a lot to go through.
The next stage. The next stage is endurance.
Listen.
Often.
Woo. Listen, endurance.
Endurance.
Like the scripture said, we gotta endure to the end. It's ironic that these
stages.
Psychologists,
right?
The people who's doing this study is saying the thing of grief you gotta do is endure. And remember, the scripture says, listen, you gotta endure to the end. Not to 2009, not to 2020, not to 2024, but to the very end. And he's telling you that's a grief of yours. Keep going.
It says endurance. Often, Black people must find the power to endure without outside support. After the funeral has ended and things appear to return to some semblance of normalcy, the mourning process intensifies.
Right.
In many cases, the need to move to action has made it difficult for others to recognize the griever's vulnerabilities and cries for help. The perception of strength can be a barrier to aftercare, and even though the need for support increases, there's often little provided.
Yeah. Listen, this is heavy, man. This is letting you know you lose someone that's important to you. You gotta endure it.
Right.
You gotta make sure. Listen, it's saying like after the funeral has ended, the things appear to return to some balance of normalcy. The mourning process. Well, I can't read it from this. What it says?
It says the mourning process intensifies.
Right. Listen, the mourning process intensifies.
Here's the thing, like, you don't have time to be weak.
Right.
So you got to put on a facade of you got it.
Strong. And you know what's funny? Always in the black community, they're like, yo, you gotta slow down, man. You ain't, how you feel? Nah, I gotta get this done. I gotta do this, I gotta do that. Listen, we gotta put them on the ground. $6,000
Right.
for the casket. And then I gotta pay for the funeral home. I gotta do this, I gotta do this. I gotta find out how to get everybody here. Listen, it's hell.
You don't get to grieve.
You don't. No one takes that from her.
Right.
Especially if your family ain't together. If your family is not strong and in unison, and it relies on that one person, when usually what it is, there's always that one family that has 8 to 9 kids, 20 kids, and there's only 2 or 3 of them that take care of the family.
Right.
They take care of the mother, the sister, or the brother, whoever is in need. No one else wants to do it. And then what happens? That person dies. Who they rely on? You the one. You took care of her. You do it. I need help. I need this. I don't got no money. It's either somebody don't got no money or there's not enough money to give around.
Right.
And then what happens? You have to pick up the burden of making sure your loved one gets put in the ground.
Right.
And then what ends up happening? Then once it's all said and done, that's when everybody want to show their face. Listen, what you did was great. It was a great thing. It was amazing that you was here. Don't feel so sorry, man. You was here with them when he such and such. You need to look up to it, man. Listen, they already went through it.
Meanwhile, you're in debt for the next 7 years.
Right. And not only that, I want you to realize the person that's doing everything, the endurance and not getting the grief, the other people are grieving at that time.
Right.
They grieving, they crying and calling each other and doing this and that, and they wondering who's taking care of the funeral. Such and such. You know what I'm saying? Josiana is taking care of it right now while she speaks, and she wanna mourn, but she can't.
Right.
Because y'all don't want to help her. Y'all don't want to endure the burden of black grief.
Right.
You want to be like what? Your oppressor, because your oppressor gets the grief. The goddamn president and listen, what's his name? What was it? Ronald Reagan? It was one of those presidents that died. The whole earth stopped.
Right.
I forget who it was, not recently, but a few years ago. One of those old presidents died from the 80s or something, died. We got to stop the whole goddamn earth.
Everything. Because
the presidents after them loved him so much. We got to stop the earth. We got to make sure every place mourns and watch it on TV, this and that. Ray's gone or Grand's gone. The workday still goes. Ain't no stopping. Can't Shima gotta take care of her grandma. She gotta make sure she gets put in the dirt. Make sure the coffin is paid for. Make sure the funeral home is paid for. Make sure the people who put her in the ground is paid for. Make sure there's food because brothers and sisters like to eat at funerals.
Right.
They like to come back, tell jokes. It has to be where? Somebody's house.
Right.
If it's not at a house, it's a function. You know what I'm saying? Then everybody goes home. You forget. After that, it don't stop.
Don't let her suggest cremation.
Right. Oh, forget about it. You can't cremate grandma.
Not granny. Not granny.
You can't cremate mama. What's wrong with you?
But won't help pay.
You can't cremate mama. We gotta go there to watch her every year. We gotta go to the grand. Get the best burial. Get the best one. I want onyx stone. And it better have a TV in it that plays all her life.
Right.
But no one wants to put in. But the other thing is, once all that's said and done, everybody tends to forget grandmama's house bill, the light bill, the car insurance, Medicaid, her bank, Social Security, whatever. All that starts popping up. Bloop, 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 bloop. And guess what? That's a whole nother endurance and stress that you are not ready for, that we are not ready for. And then it goes back to what we said before. Now you got to sell grandma's house. Now you got to sell another thing that's supposed to take care of you and have release the stress of sorrow and grief. It got to go now because nobody wants the house. Nobody wants to pay for this because I'm already in sorrow and grief, paying for what I got.
And the cycle continues.
And the cycle continues, man. Well, let's go on to the last one that's important because we all goddamn are going through this. What's the last one, Yawala?
Survival.
Say what?
Survival.
We out here doing what?
Survival.
Jeezy said what?
Survival.
Keep going.
For Black people, survival can be considered the new acceptance stage.
The what?
The new acceptance stage. If they are to survive in a system stacked against them, they have no choice but to pull themselves together and
Right.
continue to persevere. Factors such as economic hardships and the need for housing and food will continue to interfere with the grieving process, but they must continue to move forward.
Right.
As a result, sadness.
What?
Sadness.
What?
Sadness.
Yo, I know we sad out here. We surviving, and we're what?
Sadness.
We sadness right here, out here surviving. Keep going.
Anger.
We're what?
Anger.
Anger, man. You're angry. Not only are you sad, you're angry at the same time because you don't know how the hell I'm gonna survive out here, man. Keep going.
And regret.
And what?
Regret.
Damn, I shouldn't have done that. I should have kept that house, man.
I shouldn't have said what I said.
I shouldn't have said what I said. I should have been there with him. Keep going.
Are a few of the emotions that may never totally diminish.
Listen, and that's just a few.
Just a few.
That's a few off the back. Every so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian go through. If you're in this oppression with me, we all go through that. You go through anger and sadness, regret. Oh my God, regret. Everybody talks about, man, if I knew what I knew back then when I was younger, if I met my younger self, I would tell myself the blah, 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 blah. But you know what the problem is? You wouldn't have listened to yourself.
Nope.
You would have had listened to all the stuff you telling yourself now. Listen, you got to do this because you got to set yourself up. Because if you don't, this could happen and this could happen. You telling them a whole Black grief that could happen. And you know what happened? That had nothing to do with me.
Ain't nothing to do with me.
That had nothing to do with me.
I'm trying to live my life.
I'm trying to live my best life. Why? Because we look at our oppressor. We're taught to be like our oppressor.
Right.
We're taught to dress like him.
Right.
To work like him.
Right.
Tell his damn religion, man.
Right.
Hell, listen, sometimes he be like, look at my beautiful daughter. If you're worthy enough to your oppressor and you are of his standards of white privilege, my daughter's right here for you to marry, man. Take her. Take her. But us, we got to fight through every single category of and the funny thing, not just Black grief, regular grief too. That's what the oppressor don't understand right here.
Right.
We got to fight through regular grief. Go back to what regular grief is. Not just Black grief. People got to hear what regular grief is. I think you went down. It went up too much. Keep going. I think it's down more, isn't it?
Where is it? I don't see it.
Yeah, man. Look, I think is it in this article or was it the other article?
It might have been the last one, but I'll
Well, no, it's all right. No.
I got it.
Listen, the point I'm trying to make is, you got it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, read it.
Denial, anger,
Mhm.
bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Listen, we go through that too.
We go through all of those.
We go through that too, and Black
grief.
grief. All the ones we just read. Read them again. What Black grief is,
Despair,
right?
self-blame, move to action,
Right.
endurance, and survival.
Now read regular grief.
Denial, anger,
Right.
bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
We gotta deal with all that as so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. Man,
Double
they
up.
ain't no time to rest. There ain't no time for anything for Black people. Why? Because we always fighting to fight all this.
Right.
All our sorrows is all on our necks and our backs and your head and your mind, your soul. Somebody died, you lost your job, your kids is there. I don't know how I'm gonna get to work tomorrow. Who's gonna watch the kids? My brother is in jail.
And then you die early.
And then you die early. If not being stomped out or killed by your oppressor, you're gonna die from a loved one. So
Right.
there is no escaping this. So for God's sake, man, you need each other.
Right.
And then maybe you might take on a loved one. You might gain more people. You might gain lovers out there. Keep going, right?
It says centering Black grief is a vital step towards eliminating oppression. When we ask what can be done, we need to recognize how Black grief differs from white grief.
Here we go.
We can't assume that everyone shares a common culture when it comes to loss.
Right.
When we do that, we end up whitewashing grief.
We do what?
We end up whitewashing grief.
Listen, don't think your sorrows can't be whitewashed.
Right.
I'm telling you, read it again. What does it say?
It says We can't assume that everyone shares a common culture when it
Right.
comes to loss. When we do that, we end up whitewashing
What?
grief.
Whitewashing grief. Just listen to that, man. They out there whitewashing your sorrow, saying it never even happened. It can't happen. You know what? That sounds like something that we went through. This is why it's important, man. We need to stick together, man. We need to stick together, and not only stick together, talk out our differences, because when we do, you're going to cure grief. You're going to cure sorrows. A lot of our sorrows come from what? Not talking to each other.
Right.
Not loving each other. We did those two things. Man, listen, half the griefs we have will go away because you can start depending on people, your brothers and sisters, to do things for you.
Right.
Man, listen, you don't get paid the next week. Your bank account is in the negative. You go to some of your brothers. Your brothers chipped in $20 a pop. Now you got $300.
Boom.
And you don't even have to pay them back. You understand? And that's somewhat you lose. The grief and sorrow is getting off you. It's relieving you. It's like,
right.
Damn, man, I don't have to. That's one thing I don't have to worry about this week.
That's one more thing.
That's one thing I could check off my damn list of 100 things. Not only that, now that the brothers or sisters gave you funds, now I could buy groceries. I might be able to afford the babysitter. I might be able to do this. I might be able to do that. That's why it's important for brothers and sisters to fight grief, to fight sorrow. You got to do this. You got to come together, man.
Right.
And when you come together, all that is going to fall apart. All that sorrow and grief is going to disappear because you're going to always look for someone to count on, to lean on. And that's why it says in these articles of what we did during slavery, man. And when they took them from us, when our oppressor took our brother, our sister, our auntie, our uncle, what happened? We don't know what we were going to do. We go through the black griefs. We go through regular griefs. We go through survival, endurance, despair. We go through all that stuff. And then what? We still here. Right. We still here out of all that. And that amounts to something, man. That amounts to something, and something we should learn from.
Right.
But keep going. Is there anything else?
Just a little more. More. It says the omission of black grief is an act of oppression itself. It further perpetuates a society that privileges the white experience.
Right.
When white grief is the assumed norm, bereavement support is also based on white experience.
Read that again. It says when white grief is what?
Is assumed the norm.
Right.
Bereavement support is also based on the white experience. As a result, the unique implications of black grief are never addressed.
Right, because they're going off the grief we read already. They're going to go off the regular grief. Read it again one more time.
When white grief...
No, not that. The regular white grief.
Oh.
Read white grief for them.
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Right. So it says support is also based on white experience. As a result, the unique implications of black grief are never addressed. The real grief that we go through is never addressed and pushed aside.
Right.
Because they think, well, they're following the other steps of grief when we're not even on that level. We're so-called past it that we're doing both. That the black grief that we truly go through is not even recognized. It's just the regular grief he just read. But keep going, y'all. What else it says?
It says, black grief is never addressed, and black individuals are never given an equal opportunity to grieve and heal. By acknowledging black grief and how it is inextricably linked to racism and oppression, we can take a collective step towards undoing this one act of oppression and ensuring that support and services exist that are centered on the black experience.
Says Scott. Says nice old Scott. A nice old Scott who did a study on black people. And like I said before, this shows you how our oppressor truly doesn't understand what we go through. He writes all these books, all these theories, and realize, like, damn, this is magnificent. This is something we gotta study this more. Get a group of 100 black people from this generation. Let's make sure we get this correct. To the point it's like, damn, they go through entirely different lifestyle than we go
Right.
through.
Even the grief.
Even the grief. And the thing about it, even when we think we're not grieving, you're grieving.
Right.
You might not even realize it or recognize it. You
Right.
might just be like, today I'm feel a little down. Today, today I don't want to talk to nobody. I want to be in the house by myself. Or today, I might go out and party a little bit. All those come from grief. You
Right.
might not know why you want to do it, but it's because you suffer from sorrow. You suffer from depression and endurance and despair and all the other lists that we just read. And
Right.
just to cure it, just a little taste of cure and getting away with it, what you do? You go out and party with your friends.
You think you're going out to have a good time.
Right.
But in reality, you trying to cope with what you feel.
Right. Oh, hell, you might not even go out. You might just in the room. Today I feel like sleeping, man. I feel like staying in the bed for 4 to 8 hours and
Right.
wake up when my body tell me to wake up. Listen, we are suffering, man. We are in a deep depression and sorrow, and there's a cure for it. There's an absolutely cure for your depressions and sorrows and all the grief that you go through. And that is the ISUPK out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York.
Right.
Because when you come in here and you learn your culture and you learn how to battle with these different things, I know it's not on the screen, you don't see it, but you learn to deal with these. Listen, being in here is like being in almost damn near like the kingdom of heaven. Why? Because you have brothers to relieve you of stress.
Right.
You have brothers to relieve you of sorrow. You don't have to worry about how your children might get home. Who can watch them? Listen, I'm broke this week. Food in the fridge. My car broke down. What to do? You have all types of brothers and sisters here in this school that can help. And not just only here in the school. We out here to help you. Help us. That's why we have food drives.
Right.
We have prison programs. We got a GED. We got GED programs. We give away coats. We have counseling. We have all types of things to what? Combat depression. Combat grief. You understand? But if I could, right? Let's go to the other article when it really talks about white grief. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Because that article that we just read just now don't really get into it, but we're going to get into something greater. Something real juicy. What we got, Yawala? What it says right there?
Let's see. 1 second. All right.
Salakia for the LBGT lifestyle on the screen. You know what I'm saying?
It says white people go through the 5 stages of grief.
Listen, and this right here, make sure listen, do they see it?
They can see it.
Listen, make sure listen, for the record, put that big on the screen so they can see what white grief look like for them. Scroll down. This is what white grief is for them. This is what this is what they think white grief look like. That's
Right.
them.
Right.
Out there in makeup and just, I'm gonna feel better today. No type of sorrow on his face. No, nothing.
Right.
That's them. That's how they deal with it. But go ahead, y'all. Read what we got. Read the article.
White people go through 5 stages of grief.
Right.
It says they actually go through the 5 stages of grief. I gathered this long time ago. And it is this understanding that allows me to navigate white people's emotions and feelings when we address honest conversations about race.
About what?
About race.
There you go.
Racism, white supremacy, and white privilege. It says a while back ago, I wrote about how white folks' hypersensitivity, emotional distress, and conversations on race is not permanent residence. As in, the triggered anger and hysteria is not some permanent position to hold. It's the emotional reaction, and those reactions should be temporary. It says, looking back, I did a pretty good job of explaining white fragility and why white people's initial fight or flight response in race conversations need to be tamed. I even had the graphics to illustrate how circular the privilege and emotions are.
This is hilarious. Go ahead, read it for the
So 1, you don't have to think about your white privilege like how you don't have to think about racism.
right.
2, us Sociologically intelligent black folk force you to abandon your selective ignorance and situational stupidity. 3, you get butthurt and your white feelings. Your white privilege is challenged and you don't like it. 4, you attempt to use the pain of your white privilege being challenged to evade the discussion.
Keep going.
He says, I always notice that the 5 stages of grief and white people's feelings on intellectually honest, deep conversations on race in America.
Right.
I never thought to articulate them all until now. It says, why is this important? This revelation is deeply important because once you recognize that a white person's denial,
Right.
anger, or victimhood cards are stages, you realize that they are not permanent positions. They can be surpassed. It says there is, in fact, a light or enlightenment at the end of the tunnel. We just got to help the white person in question get there.
Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, what this is all boiling back to is grief for white people is white supremacy. It's white privilege.
Right.
That's what it is for them. That's the type of grief they got to go through. It's like, damn, man, I don't got ice. I don't got ice, bro. This party that I'm throwing, I forgot the ice. That's the type of sorrows and stuff they go through.
I'm going to look bad.
I'm going to look bad, right? Listen, I threw this whole party and nobody came. Nobody, none of the popular kids came. That's the type of stuff they go through, man.
Right.
The type, not only as in white privilege, is racism.
Right.
You understand? And this article is just trying to let you know that they truly don't understand. They really are not suffering as you think they're suffering.
And when you tell them about your actual black grief,
right,
they start getting to denying. They go through their own stages of grief, of denial.
Right. They deny it. Why are you telling me about that? That was a long time ago. That's why you get things of, that's so, leave that alone, man. Right. Why are we talking about the Atlantic slave trade, man? Black people put black people in slavery too. They love saying that. Africans enslave Africans. Right. So why are you talking about white people enslaving black people? It's because we're still here with you.
I heard them say, there were black slave owners too. Black people bought slaves.
Right. Listen, the Native Indians enslaved y'all.
Right.
Don't talk about me. I'm not talking about Native Indians. I'm talking about you, so-called oppressor. Don't bring me into this. I made y'all. I civilized you. We gave y'all jobs. Right. We gave you houses. We gave you a backyard.
Or the most recent one, you benefited from slavery.
Right. You benefited from slavery. Right. They'll say anything to not be in any type of sorrow or depression or anger or survival. They rather just stay in their little isolated, concluded little box of white racism or white privilege and be like, listen, pull your bootstraps up. You understand? Or work harder. Or go get an education when, and guess what? They don't never do that.
Never.
Half these people, that are millionaires and billionaires, how long it took them to get famous or get the money? At the end of damn near midlife.
Right.
They was loaned what Donald Trump would say, a cool $1 million from my father. I got a cool $1 million loan from my father to start a business. Where's my cool $1 million loan? There is none.
It's ironic. When you start catching up, they change the rules.
Right.
So like what people don't know is the whole reason you pay for college is because before black people wasn't allowed to go to college.
Absolutely.
So once college was free. I don't know if people know that in America. Once black people was allowed to go to college, now you got to pay.
Right.
Once black people started getting their bachelors, now bachelors don't mean nothing. You gotta get a master's now.
Right.
It's all just to stop you.
Right. Listen, absolutely. But listen, we went through the black grief, we went through white grief, and now I'm going to show you where it all comes from. Go to the next article, right? Because this is how much they won't suffer in grief and sorrow. Read what you got, y'all. I'll read what that says.
It says the history of Lady Justice and the scales of justice.
Listen, if you don't know who Lady Justice is, that's the statue that be on the town hall or any law office and this and that. She got she got the blindfold and the wings and the sword and the balance. Their gods is for justice, man. They got gods of justice. Why? Because they refuse to be in sorrow. They refuse to somebody not remember what you've done to me. And whatever you've done to me, you have to pay for it. So much, they have a God for it. They have a God of justice. But the thing about it is, we too have a God of justice.
Right.
We too have a God that remembers the iniquity of every so-called oppressor that put their hands on a child, that put their hands on our loved ones, that put their hands on an old elder. There's a God that remembers that. And that God is the God of the Bible, man.
Right.
The God of the Bible. But let's listen to their God of justice and listen to what they say. Go ahead, read what you got, y'all.
So Lady Justice, holding the scales of justice, is one of the most, if not the most, recognizable symbols in the legal system.
Right.
The statue of Lady Justice holding the scales of justice demonstrates an aura of fairness, opportunity, and, as you can imagine, justice. In fact, Lady Justice, or a version of it, is not only common in the United States, but it is a familiar symbol for multiple countries across the world.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Justice can be traced all the way back to the Egyptian goddess Ma'at,
right,
and the ancient Greek goddess Themis, and Dice. This should come to no surprise, as Ma'at symbolized Egyptian ideologies of balance, harmony, justice, law, and order. And
the thing about all these countries that they're naming, these are all countries that slaved us.
Right.
And just think about it. They have these guys about justice. Remember, they're saying fair and all this, but they were never fair to us.
Right.
They never seek their God of justice for us. But it's for them. Because why? Their type of grief, their type of sorrow is what? White privilege and racism. You understand? So why would I give you justice where I'm over you? I don't need to give you justice. You're not even human. You're a slave. You're cattle. That's how they look towards us. But for them, Lady Justice, or even a God like Lady Justice, because there's multiple similarities of her everywhere, they are like, listen, whatever it is, we're going to do it fair and justice and get this judgment. Keep going.
Themis represented fairness, law, and order, and Dice embodied fair judgment and moral order.
Right.
Since then, a version of Lady Justice hoisting the scales of justice can be seen in various alterations in numerous countries. It says, now, although Lady Justice statues may vary, the one characterization of Lady Justice that is most familiar with has three distinct features: a blindfold, the scales of justice, and a sword.
A what?
A sword. As one can imagine, these characteristics represent important ideas and values. To start, the blindfold over Lady Justice's eyes represents the notion of impartiality. The idea of impartiality is of utmost importance in the legal system, as it denounces justice should be applied no matter the circumstances. Next, the scales of justice signify that in order for justice to be had, the weight of the evidence for and against an issue should be weighed and considered before issuing a ruling. The scales of justice go directly to the heart of law and the duty to consider both sides presented. Finally, the sword represents a sense of authority and power, that justice can be administered quickly and in its final manner. Lady Justice holds the scales of justice, has been and will continue to be an important figure for justice systems all over the world. Its balance of impartiality and process symbolizes how justice can be served. Lady Justice is not only an interesting statue, but is a reminder of the ideas and values fundamental to the law.
Right. And what's so heavy about this, right? I made sure to get it from a law office. This right there, that was a law bureau.
Right.
Telling you what law, or the Lady Justice, and what else it said? The meaning of what? Justice system?
Right.
Right. For them. So they talking about fairness, they talking about this, they talking about that. They don't do any of that. Was 9/11 fair and just? Was it? Because they killed innocent people.
Right.
You understand? They killed millions of innocent people. Was the transatlantic slave trade justice?
Right.
Was all anything what was coming here and Columbus, what he did to the Native Indians, Native Americans, was that justice? Was that fair? No, he'll tell you, listen, not only that, he'll tell you it's fair, he'll tell you what's the terminology? It's on the tip of my tongue. I forget the terminology.
For what?
Damn, what they use for saying coming here. I forget it. Damn it. It's the tip of my tongue. Well, it probably come back to me. But they use it to justify the things they've done to manifest destiny.
Manifest destiny.
They say it's manifest destiny.
It's God's will.
Right. It's God's will that I take this from you. It's God's will that I do this. It's God's will that I do that. There is no justice from. There is no fairness. It's only fair and justice when it's done on his people.
To think that they're saying that's their destiny and they're just manifesting it.
Right. I manifest what's supposed to happen. And remember, this is their God. This is why they don't have sorrow, because they have their God of justice. Well, listen, you could drop that. Give me this, right? Give me Ecclesiasticus in the Apocrypha 25:7. This is what our God tells us what our justice is, man. Because guess what? Our God of the Bible, Yahweh, and the most high God of the Bible, the 12 tribes of Israel, our Father, which is in heaven, guess what? He's going to serve justice for us, man.
25 and what?
25:7.
Ecclesiasticus 25:7.
Right.
There be 9 things
Mm-hmm.
which I have judged in my heart,
Right.
to be happy.
To be what?
To be happy.
Just remember this is 9 things I judge in my heart to be happy. Keep going.
And the 10th I will utter with my tongue.
Mm-hmm.
A man that have joy of his children.
The man that what?
Have joy of his children.
Listen, joy of your children is a wonderful thing, man. It's a blessing to see the what?
A man that have joy of his children.
Joy of his children, man. You see your children grow up. You see them. You teach them what you want to teach them. They grow up. They go out there, have beautiful lives, have more children, give you grandchildren, grandbabies,
Right.
Make you proud. It's joy to have children. Keep going.
And he that liveth.
And he that what?
He that liveth.
Remember this. And he that liveth, and this is told. Remember, this is a God of the Bible, the Most High. Remember, he writing this for us to learn, to go back to these laws, statutes, and commandments, to remember what we should do during a time of trouble. He says, what? Read it again.
And he that liveth.
And he that living, listen.
To see the fall of his enemy.
To see the what?
Fall of his enemy.
Listen, that's justice, man. That's justice. Remember, these are one of the 10 things that are great things, man. It says an enemy to do what?
To see the fall of his enemy. He that liveth to see the fall of his enemy.
And that's a beautiful thing, black man. Hispanic man, Native Indian. That's a beautiful thing, because we don't believe that we're going to see the fall of our enemies. We don't believe how you're going to even see the growing up of your children.
Right.
You half the time when I was small, we didn't even think we were going to make it to 18, 21.
If I may, it's ironic because that symbol of justice with the lady in the balance.
Right.
Notice the balance is never level.
Right. It's always in their favor.
Exactly. Even in their symbol, it's not just.
Right. It's not fair.
It's not fair.
It's always in what? Our way. It's all, and that's right, y'all. It's always unbalanced. It's always on the side of what? Us, because we're the justice.
Right.
We give the justice. We give the judgment. We'll tell you if you have sorrow or you don't have sorrow.
Right.
We'll tell you if you're a slave or you 1/5 of a man.
We'll tell you if you can grieve or not.
Right. We'll tell you if you're able to grieve or not. We'll tell you if you can die or not die.
Right.
You understand? But the scripture says what?
A man that have joy of his children.
A man that have joy of his children.
And he that liveth to see the fall of his enemy.
And he that liveth to see the fall of his enemies. And God knows, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, you have enemies, man.
Right.
The Lord wants you to live long enough to see the fall of your enemies. That's justice, man. That's a God that I want to serve, Because guess what? Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, your oppressor wants to kill you before you even see this, man. He don't even want you to deal with, what was the other, what it said before the fall of your enemies?
A man that have joy of his children.
He don't even want you to see you having joy with your children, man. Just think about that. He don't. Why? Because you're too busy grieving. You got to go to work. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to be a slave. So surely he don't want you to see the joy of your children growing up and teaching them the way of the Most High God. Surely he don't want that.
Right.
And surely he don't want what? After that?
Oh. He that liveth to see the fall of his enemy.
Yeah, surely he don't want to see you see the fall of him. Surely he don't want to see the fall of the American Empire, all his yachts and tall skyscrapers. Surely you don't want to witness that. Surely you just want to be like me. He's hoping you want to be like him more. He's hoping you want to go to work more, do the lottery, do this, do that, pull your bootstrap up, go to the greatest white university you could possibly go to, be in debt, to get out of debt somehow. And then when you're at a nice ripe age of 70, you get to enjoy your life. Hopefully nobody in your lifetime dies, especially don't let it be more than 3.
Oh,
you might have a heart attack.
Forget about it.
You might suffer from a broken heart like we read before. Sure, Lord forbid you go through that, right?
Right.
But this is why we have scriptures like this to get us through all the stuff we go through, man. To endure more. To make sure we make it to the end. Why? Because, of course, we want to see the fall of our enemies. Of course, you want to see your children grow up, man. Here, let's get another one. Give me Isaiah chapter 35, verse 10. Isaiah chapter 35, verse 10, because that's not the only scripture. There's a lot of scriptures we could go through.
Isaiah chapter 35, verse 10.
Mm-hmm.
And the ransomed of the Lord shall return.
It says the what?
The ransomed of the Lord shall return.
And listen, the ransom of the Lord is you, black man. You Hispanic man, you Native Indian. You are the ransom of the Lord, and he wants it back. You talking about, listen, you talking about they're fair and just. They stole something that belongs to the Most High God, man. Imagine someone stealing your children and looking at them as treasure. Looking at them like, listen, wages. Like, yo, I'm going to give you 2 and 3 babies here. They did that, didn't they?
Right.
Slavery, they did that. They had ransoms. Like, all right, I want this and this. I'll give you 2 pregnant women for this strong lad right here. Because look, in the area, you're getting 4 people, but I just want this tall, brolic person. Let me get him. They did all that. They held us for ransom. Well, guess what? The Lord wants it back. The Lord wants us back out of oppression, man. But keep going. What else it says?
And come to Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness and sorrow, and Zion shall flee away.
Sorry, read that one more time. It said the ransom of the Lord shall return and what?
And come to Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads.
Right, listen, it's going to come with everlasting joy upon their heads. We're going to sing songs. You're going to finally understand what it is to be relieved of grief. Because why? The Lord's going to come down and save us. He's going to come down here and save you from this oppressor that somewhat says he gives rightful judgment, fair justice. When he does it, he's holding ransom, guess what, in the back. In the bank, that's where you at right now. You in his bank as commodity. You know what I'm saying? Listen, I'm going to give you this. Whoever has us, guess what? They benefit. Every time we went into a captivity, guess what? They benefited off us. Worked us to death. And guess what? We kept multiplying. We kept multiplying. You look in Exodus, you understand? Chapter 1, you read chapter 1 all the way down. It told you Pharaoh tried to kill us, tried to destroy us. Every time he made us work harder, we multiplied. We did this, we did that. And so no matter what grief we were in, we survived, man.
Right.
And that's what's important is survival. And the Lord right here is going to tell you we're going to survive it. Not only are we going to survive it, we're going to sing songs about the destruction of our oppressor. It says, Zion with songs and everlasting joy upon their heads. They shall obtain joy and gladness, and sorrow and silence shall flee away. You won't have no more of this. Your great grandchildren won't even know what it is to suffer. They will be like, yo, you used to do what? You used to go what? How much you used to get paid? How much you used to do?
Laughing. They laugh at it.
We used to work. That's crazy, man. Yeah, full of it. That is absolutely crazy.
Couldn't be us.
Couldn't be me. Could not be me. Listen, in the roles with gold chains, it could not be me. But listen, before we go, let's get this last scripture, right? Let's get Revelation chapter 21, verse 4. Revelation chapter 21, verse 4.
This is Revelation chapter 21, verse 4.
Right.
And the Most High shall wipe away all the tears from their eyes.
It says what?
The Most High shall wipe away all the tears from their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And there shall be no more death,
right?
Near sorrow, nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain.
Right.
For the former things are passed away.
Listen, and that's a beautiful thing, man. Just think about it. That's a beautiful thing. It's saying, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things have passed away. And this right here, brothers and sisters, that's the kingdom of heaven.
Right.
That's something we absolutely need to endure to. Because without us enduring to that, you're going to forever have black grief and regular grief. You ain't going to truly understand what it means to be free, to be a actual man, an actual woman. We don't know what it is to be a man or woman. We don't. And what I mean is we are struggling still as slaves. We're not free. It just evolved over time. Right. They try to hide it by, all right, you could do this, you could do that, you could go out, you could do this. It's remnants, hell, to the point they want to bring it back. I know. They want to bring it back. They want to put you back enslaved. Listen, a few years ago, they voted on our civil rights.
Right.
Some of them said nay. Just keep that in mind. Some of them said, nah, I don't think we should renew this bill.
The 13th Amendment.
You're right. I don't think we should renew this. I think they should go right back in captivity. This is about this close. This right here, this little sliver, you can slide a little penny through that we made it through.
Right.
And that was the graces of the Lord, man. And this is why scriptures like these and many other and all these articles show you why blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, why we are great. Because we go through the most cruelest captivities. We go through the most cruelest events, the most cruelest tortures. We survive everything. But the problem is we need to survive everything together. We need to survive everything as brothers and sisters, man. But with that, we the ISUPK coming out of 1 West 125th Street, Harlem, New York. We've been doing this since 1969. They're letting so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians know that you are lost sheep of the house of Israel. Like always, subscribe, like, check words, Long Island. Let it be known. Until next time, y'all. Shalom.